Hi there. Welcome back to the Complicated Kids podcast. I'm your host, Gabriele Nicolet. I'm a toddler whisperer, a speech therapist, and a parent coach. And today I'm joined by Becca Engle. Becca, welcome.
Thank you for having me.
I'm really excited about today's conversation, and it's been quite a while in the making because we're going to talk about um, a little bit about what it's like to be autistic as a
Yeah.
child.
Yeah.
So tell us who you are, what you do, and then we're going to dive in today.
Yeah. So I'm Becca Engle. I am a special education teacher, neurodivergent book coach. I teach people how to share their international best-selling story. And I also was an autistic child, now autistic adult, diagnosed 3 times.
And what was the first time you were diagnosed? How old were you?
I was 3.
And that's pretty early.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
So almost the earliest you can be diagnosed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And what did that look like? Why did your parents seek an evaluation for you?
So ironically, they didn't. I was with my brother at a thing, and my parents realized I was different. I had already been diagnosed as a baby with benign proximal vertigo, which is like an ear issue, and dizziness in the head. And so they were like, yeah, maybe you related to that, whatever. But all of my doctors were like, don't compare your daughter to your sons. Like, girls develop differently. Like, I had 2 brothers, 2 older brothers. And at this point, I just had a little brother who was born. So we were at my brother's 5-year checkup, the one who's slightly older than me, 2 years apart. And the doctor looked at my mom, who was my doctor was his doctor's boss. So she was like, what is wrong with her? Because I was spinning in circles, I was jumping up and down, I was slamming my head against the wall, I was doing the rocking back and forth. And my mom was like, finally, someone said something. Like,
Oh, wow.
she was like, thank you. And that doctor immediately the same day sent me in for an evaluation. So, like, there was literally no, like, my mom was like going with developmental milestones and realized they were off, but whatever. And this doctor was like, yeah, no, I'm going to get behind my boss and do what I want to do. So,
Wow. So, okay, at that time, you're not speaking.
mhm,
You are spinning, rocking, flapping,
mhm,
doing what we consider to be, it's so gross to say it, but like classic autism symptoms.
mhm.
Um, and do you have any memories of that time? No.
No, not other than what I've been told.
Okay. Yeah. And as you got older, so then you mentioned you started talking when you were about 5.
Mhm.
Walk us through that a little bit.
Yeah, so at 5 I said 22 words. So a lot of people would still consider that educationally nonverbal because most people weren't communicating with only 22 words. But my mom enrolled me in early childhood special education when I was 3. And they were kind of like, yeah, she's just not going to talk ever. Like they had gotten to this point where they were like, yeah, she's just not ever going to talk. She's not going to be independent. She's not going to live life on her own. And they actually had wanted to place me in homebound education. They didn't even think I belonged in school because I was such a visibly, I guess, autistic child. And my mom started journaling everything,
Mm.
removed food coloring from my diet over time, and removed a lot of like chemicals and things from my diet. And when I wouldn't have it, my eyes would get bright red and I would go mute and I would get very angry. And we have pictures where my eyes, like around, are like red and purple. And I would crave it like a drug. And I do remember that. Um, and I would literally wake up in the middle of the night, like looking for food coloring,
Wow.
like, like it was like heroin, like, but my mom was constantly reading to me. Like any chance she got, she was reading to me. Dr. Seuss, whatever she could find. And slowly, like at 4, I kind of started doing the talking thing. And then by the time I was 5, I started really talking. And then by 6, I never shut up. So,
And did you have speech
yeah.
therapy during this time, or was it just your mom?
I did, but a lot of speech therapy at that point was just like blends and sounds and all. They didn't help me really with the full length words.
Mhm.
A lot of that was just like say 4,000 times. Say 4,000 times, you know. Um,
Ay, ay, ay.
and
Yeah.
so even when I was in speech therapy, it was very just like read this, say this, and not very, I don't know, um long length. And then we could only get me speech therapy through the school.
Mhm.
um my speech therapist, medically we had one, and they were like, you either get it through the school, and this was in Florida, you either get it through the school, you get it through us. And so I couldn't have both,
Oh,
like
this
they
is
wouldn't.
wild. Okay, now, so when
So
when was this? Just not to like ask how old you are, but like what
yeah,
year are
no,
we
I don't
talking about?
care.
Yeah.
I'm 22. I'm super young.
This is
This
in
was
recent. Okay, and the reason I just want to pause here for a second because this is quite recent that this is
yeah.
happening in
Yeah, this
Florida.
was 2006, 2005. But yeah, then we moved to Oklahoma, and Oklahoma was like, you can have both, but I was already adjusted to only school, so my parents weren't gonna, but they were like, you can pull her out of school for speech therapy and it counts as an absence, or you can do your school-based one. And so, yeah.
Okay, so just I want to pause here for a second just to
Okay.
say to parents who are listening, be aware that you're allowed to have both medical and academic speech therapy. That is
Mhm.
allowed. You should. They're two different systems. They work on different things, even if those things sometimes overlap. But particularly if we've got an autism diagnosis, the more support, the more good support, the better. And the likelihood that you're going to get somebody who actually understands something about autism increases when you have more people on the case. Is that what would you say that's fair to say, Becca?
I would agree. I would agree. And yes, please look for outside sources. I've heard so many admin and things in my career say like to the parents, well, our school said no, so don't do it medically. And I'm like, um, and so yeah, I don't endorse the one way or no way. I had a kid as a teacher who they wanted to do OT. The mom was like, his handwriting, I want to do OT. And they were like, well, he's getting that support in dyslexia therapy. And I was like, oh my God. Like if the mom wants to test for OT outside of school because the school testing failed, let the mom do what's best for her child. Like, why are you advocating against, okay, it comes back bad. All right, next.
Correct. Thank you. Exactly. Okay. Yeah. So you heard it here. I've got the outside perspective. You've got the inside perspective. We are in agreement here. Um, so I want to ask you, was there any person in your life who was important to, like, who were the adults, or was there an adult that kind of was your bridge, or was an important person to you in your evolution to becoming a clearly very verbal, very coherent person and
Yeah,
cohesive?
I would say my mom mostly,
Mm-hmm.
but outside of family, I feel like we all kind of have to have that resort. My pre-K teacher, when I was in Oklahoma, I did 3 years of pre-K, but she had me as a student teacher my second year of pre-K. She was the student teacher for my classroom, and then my third year of pre-K, she was my main teacher. Um, and my um as a student teacher, she believed in me and really like almost like took me on under her wing. Like I was almost hers rather than my main teacher's, because the main teacher hated everything about me. Like anytime she could scream at me, she would, or strain me. And then when I had the other teacher, the one that became my main teacher that following year, I was in a self-contained pre-K class with probably only 10 other kids. She took me from sped, self-contained to general ed with accommodations. And having that push obviously was helpful. But if it weren't for her, like who knows when or if I would have ever been put in that general education setting. And then from there on out, I was an A student almost all of elementary school.
And how did you know that she was on your side? How did you receive that internally?
Yeah. Um, she wasn't only a teacher, she like attended all of my outside stuff. Like I was a dance student when I was like 4. Couldn't dance now, please don't ask me to. But I couldn't even dance back then, but my mom thought I could, so yeah, every little girl thinks she's a dancer, right? And so my mom like put me in like different things with general ed students. My mom never really cared about the label. She threw me in everything. Soccer, dance, cheer. I was in all of it. And my teacher was always there. Like this pre-K teacher was always at everything while raising her own kids and having like her own life. And I think that's where like I noticed it was different as a child too. I mean, and she didn't have to be there. It wasn't like I was some star. Like I would literally like everyone else would be doing the dance and I would like be in the middle spinning in circles while everyone else was doing what was supposed to happen because I was that type of child at the time. But she was still there like, yeah, go Becca. And I think that that really was a big thing. And then also just not getting constantly um in trouble. Like things were fixable and I wanted to be in her presence. And I think that, you know, I try to follow those examples as a teacher myself.
I really want to point this out, and then I want you to tell me about your experience as a teacher, because so often as teachers, as therapists of any kind, um, how do I want to phrase this? When I trained as a speech therapist, I was trained that the way I knew I was doing a good job was if my data set got better. Okay. What you're describing in this particular slice of your life was you were in a bunch of activities during which you were still spinning and rocking and flapping and not appearing to participate. And your teacher was there cheering you on, not teaching you how to be in the line doing the steps. And I just really want to call that out, because what she did and what I have recognized over the past few years that I do also is that connection has to come first. So do you want to talk a little bit about, I mean, we've talked about your experience as a child, but as a teacher, how do you resonate with what I just said?
Yeah, I definitely agree. And I feel like once you connect with that child, I feel like you really do want them, like they want to perform well for you, they want to grow for you. As an educator, like I I've always tried to make those connections with my students, whether I was teaching pre-K at a daycare or teaching, sped ed and elementary school. I feel like, once you are there cheering them on for everything, they want to perform well for you. They want to see you happy for them and they want to be happy for you. And I stress that even in my public speaking and presentations, like you're going to have kids who are a complete, so you can call it mess. But once you support them, they come back 1,000 times. Everything in my classroom has always been a game. Like as a special ed teacher, I don't, even as a early childhood teacher when I was one, I feel like we always made everything into an activity. And then, you don't have to do the things like hold cookies over their head to get them to perform well, because you're implementing the cookies into the activity, and now you're doing an activity with cookies, and it doesn't matter how they're um performing on the math, because now the math is the cookies and you're implementing it, and now you see those results. And so I feel like those are the things the kids remember about their school year. They don't remember the 4,000 worksheets, I promise you. And so implementing the 4,000 worksheets isn't changing anything. It's just making them miserable, making them hate the environment that they're in, especially with sped ed kids. So yeah.
It's so wild to me how, yeah, how many adults think that making children miserable is the way to teach them things. Like, and that we don't give ourselves permission. Adults often don't give themselves permission to change course when they see that kids are miserable. Like, sometimes we think we have to keep going because that's how we were taught to do our jobs, and it is incorrect. That is just bad teaching that we received. And it's bad teaching that we're giving if we're not connecting first. Because I agree with you. Every time that I have connected first with a child, they absolutely want to progress. They're like, oh, you want me to do this? I trust you. I like you. Okay, this must be an okay thing for me to do. And they'll take that step, and then they'll take another one. And that's the only way you get progress. What how does your autism affect you or manifest in your life now?
I get overstimulated very easily. And I feel like a lot of people ignore that. They're like, yeah, you're fine, whatever. And then they throw me in a room with 400 things going on. And I'm like, whoa, rainbows, right? And so I get easily overstimulated. And I'm actually in chiropractic neurotherapy for that, which I know is controversial. I'm like, I know that's a hot take, but it's changed my life, so whatever.
Well, and I'll
Um,
tell you something else. Your diet comment earlier is also controversial. I'm putting that in air quotes because there's no way. I mean, based on what you said, also in terms of like you were seeking it like a drug. You're like, I
yeah.
must have that. It's doing
Mhm.
something for me. Food and body work, I think, are two of the most important levers that we
Mhm.
can address when we've
Mhm.
got a nervous system
Mhm.
that is so sensitive.
Mhm.
So
Yeah. Well,
I'm not surprised, and I'm happy to hear you say it out loud because I don't think enough
yeah.
people do. So,
Well, it's been 7 months of it, and I'm 6 points away from a perfect nervous system. So, um, and I have the data for it too. But I feel like those are some of the things that, obviously help with that. And I see myself getting like less overstimulated. Like I went into Walmart the first time without stimming afterwards, and I was so shocked. Which is rare for me. Like typically I go back in my car and I'm like this for like a good hour. Um, and I do my stims privately now, or I zone out into my phone a lot in public in order to like mask or hide. And I've realized I'm doing that a lot less, and I'm going out and putting myself in a lot more social situations that are like having to actually like talk about things other than my business. And I feel like I'm stronger at networking events because I have a script already prepared, and I'm like already knowing what I'm going to say. So I don't mind those events. But obviously in social situations where I have to be friendly with people, I'm like, oh my God, what if I what if I say the wrong things? And it's funny, I was out the other day and someone pointed out, and they actually walked up to me and they said, are you autistic? And I had never met this person. And I said, yes. And she goes, okay. And she was like, I only noticed because every certain amount of seconds you move your eyes to the left. And I was like, okay. And she was like, also, you do it specifically only with people with certain colored eyes. And with
Did this
other
person
color
also
eyes,
disclose as being autistic?
no.
What?
No, she didn't. She said that she studied it, but like one of her friends is autistic or something, and that's how she knows a lot. But she, or her friend's husband or something. But
Okay.
she said that my eyes move. She's ADHD. So, I mean,
Uh,
she said that my eyes move with certain color eyes every certain amount of seconds. And now I'm like really subconscious of that. Not in a bad way. I'm just like, oh, and she said that when I look at someone with blue eyes, it happens more often than when it happens when I look at someone else with brown eyes. And like things I don't think about, right?
that
I
is
also have,
fascinating. I can't, like, I don't
right?
even know. I've never heard anything like that. I just like,
Either.
what?
And this person wasn't a doctor, but it was still just like interesting to hear somebody like ask me that and straight up no. And we were in the middle of a very, very loud area. We were in a like a bar
Mm.
and like a very, very party bar. And she was like, also, um, she was like, you're really, really good at masking. I'm very proud of you. And I was like, oh my goodness. Like I took that as such a compliment. And she wasn't being mean.
No,
Like
no, no.
I didn't take it. And a lot of people are like, that's so mean. And I'm like, no, like it was interesting. Like I've never had someone be able to observe it because I'm always told that my disability is invisible,
Yeah.
uh, which it's totally not unless you're ignorant. But
It's such an interesting comment, right? Like, she point blank asked you, "Are you autistic?" and then proceeded to like give you her logic for why that was. And as you're telling the story, I'm like nodding and happy because this is a great story because that person was coming with openness and curiosity and really wanted to know about you.
Mhm.
And they were coming with with a very unique perspective, and that's really different from that is energetically very different. That's an open, inclusive energy versus a judgy, closed energy that is going to say, you're different from me. We can't be friends. Right. Like, and you feel that.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, and you do. It's weird, but you do. When you say you're autistic and the whole mood changes, or people immediately start using you for your information and stuff rather than I can't tell you how many times I've included in my babysitting ads that I'm autistic. And the reason I include it is because I want parents who have autistic children to be like, oh crap, she could understand my child. And I've been told, oh, well, can you deal with someone severe? And I'm like, I was severe, bro. Like, I mean, I was, and then probably still secretly am. I've just gotten really good at masking. Um, and I've been diagnosed all three levels of autism. So I feel like I don't believe in that system anymore, right? But because I'm like, I'm all of it.
Well,
Medically,
and it's really important what you're saying because here you are at 22.
Mhm.
By the way, we have not scripted this conversation. I did not send you a list of questions. We got on, we don't know each other. I said, here's what I want to talk about. And you said, okay. And we pretty much took it from there. So number
Mhm.
one, this is a podcast is a particular kind of conversation, but still it's a pretty elastic, pretty spontaneous conversation that we're having. Number one. And to go backwards, to look backwards from now on, back to when you were 3 years old, and to try to reconcile that, I think is probably pretty challenging for the people who are listening right now. And
Mhm.
I just want to stick it in your brain. If you are a parent of a non-speaking 3-year-old or 4-year-old or 5-year-old autistic child, do not assume. And we talk about this all the time in the groups that I run too. Do not assume that a diagnosis means a certain prognosis. That's not what we're talking about here. In fact, you're evidence of that.
Mhm.
Um,
Yeah, but the just to quickly wrap that point up, I've had parents go, okay, do you need me to accommodate the job because you're autistic? But I've also had, and like, I get it, right? But I've also had the other end of things where people are like, oh, well, you can't deal with my severe needs child because you're high functioning. And I'm like, oh my God. Um, but it's interesting to see, there's a Facebook page where the woman's like, um, all these high functioning adults did this. And I'm like, how can you determine that? Like based on our looks? Like,
Yeah.
yeah, it's a wild world out there.
And listen, if you've met one person with autism, you've met one person with autism, because of the other things that often travel with autism. So you, given you are speaking and participated in dance class and all kinds of other things, right? You do not also have a lot of apraxia, for example. You have control over your body. People who have a lot of apraxia may be very bright. They may be as articulate as you, and they cannot speak. And so it's just to say autism is one part of what can be happening, and then there might be other parts. And so function is really determined by like, what are those other parts also? And it's not all just autism all the time.
Yeah.
Becca, if people want to learn more about you, what do they do?
You can go to my Instagram. It's re02.20 or Stitches Stanzas, which is my business page. Or you can go to my Facebook, which is Becca Engle or Stitches and Stanzas. I have two pages on both platforms.
Okay. And we will link to all of that in the show notes. Any final parting words? Anything I didn't ask you about that you want the people to know?
I always tell people, don't let people peel you or your child stickers off. I think of people as Rubik's cubes. We can peel each other's stickers off and figure out the answers and try to figure out each other quickly, or we can take our time. So
I love that. That feels really good to me. All right, Becca Engle, thank you. This was really fun.